Have you ever wondered what true leadership really looks like? In a world where politicians sell their nations for a few coins, where leaders bow to foreign powers in exchange for favors, one man stood up and said, "No." A simple word, but a word that carried the weight of courage, dignity, and truth. That man is Ibrahim Traoré, the young and fearless president of Burkina Faso. A soldier turned leader, a man born from poverty, who rose not to enrich himself, but to free his people. The story you are about to hear is not just about a political decision. It is not just about an offer from Saudi Arabia to build 200 mosques. No. This story is about something far greater. It is about the soul of a nation. It is about the kind of leader the world rarely sees, a leader who puts his people above wealth, above power, and above appearances. When the Saudi government announced its grand proposal to build 200 mosques in Burkina Faso, the world reacted with excitement. Many thought it was a blessing, a gift, an opportunity too great to reject. After all, Saudi Arabia is one of the richest nations on earth, and Burkina Faso is one of the poorest. What possible reason could a president have to turn down such generosity? But then came the moment that stunned the world. Standing firm with no hesitation in his voice, President Ibrahim Traoré said, "We do not need more mosques. We already have enough mosques. What we need is clean water. We need schools for our children. We need modern hospitals. We need roads, electricity, and the daily essentials of life." Those words shook the halls of power, not just in Saudi Arabia, but across the globe. Because they revealed something rare, an African leader refusing to bow, refusing to sell his people's future for empty promises. Think about it. How many times have leaders accepted gifts, aid, and loans that do not solve the real problems? How many times have politicians chosen symbolism over survival, image over reality? But Ibrahim Traoré was different. He understood that you cannot pray on an empty stomach. You cannot bow your head in a mosque if you have no water to drink, no school to send your children to, no hospital to save your loved ones. And so he rejected the offer, not out of arrogance, not out of disrespect for faith, but out of loyalty to truth. His people needed bread before they needed bricks. His people needed medicine before they needed marble. His people needed life before they needed luxury. This decision revealed the kind of leader Ibrahim Traoré is. A man of steel, but also a man of compassion. He was born from poverty, so he knows the pain of the poor. He was raised without privilege, so he knows the struggles of the ordinary man. And that is why his every decision carries the weight of lived experience. This is not the story of a president. This is the story of a fighter, a man who refuses to bend, who refuses to sell out, who refuses to play the game of fake politics. This is the story of a leader who dares to stand against giants, who dares to put his people above all else. And as we move deeper into this story, you will see why this single refusal is far bigger than 200 mosques. It is about Africa's independence. It is about dignity in the face of power. It is about showing the world that the future cannot be bought. Stay with me until the end, because by the time this story is over, you will not only understand Ibrahim Traoré's decision, you will feel it. You will see why millions now look to him as a symbol of courage, as a voice for the voiceless, as the leader who cannot be bought. The Saudi proposal was not small. 200 mosques, an offer wrapped in grandeur, coated with generosity, and presented as a gift to the people of Burkina Faso. To many it looked like a blessing from the heavens. After all, Saudi Arabia is the heartland of Islam, the guardian of Mecca and Medina, the nation that symbolizes faith for millions. So, when the news broke that Riyadh was offering to finance and build 200 new mosques in Burkina Faso, people expected celebration. They imagined ceremonies, handshakes, agreements signed with smiles, and leaders praising each other. They thought President Ibrahim Traoré would bow his head in gratitude and that Burkina Faso would welcome this as a divine gift. But reality was very different. When the offer reached Ibrahim Traoré, he did not see generosity. He saw distraction. He did not see progress. He saw illusion. He did not see development. He saw decoration. Because he knew something that others ignored. Burkina Faso was not starving for mosques. Burkina Faso was starving for food. He understood the truth that many leaders bury under layers of diplomacy and politics. A mosque, no matter how beautiful, cannot heal a sick child. A mosque, no matter how grand, cannot replace a school for the millions of children without education. A mosque, no matter how symbolic, cannot deliver electricity to villages plunged in darkness, nor bring water to families walking miles under the burning sun. And so, in a voice calm but unshakable, he gave his answer. The kind of answer most leaders are too afraid to give. He said, "We already have enough mosques. We do not need more mosques. What we need is clean water for our people. We need schools for our children. We need modern hospitals to save lives. We need electricity, roads, and the basic foundations of life." The room fell silent. It was not the answer anyone expected. It was not the answer Saudi Arabia wanted. It was not the answer that fit the script of dependency. But it was the truth. News of his refusal spread quickly. Across Africa, people were stunned. In the Middle East, there was confusion. In Europe and America, there was curiosity. Who was this young leader who had dared to reject one of the richest countries in the world? Who was this man who stood firm where others would have bowed? Saudi Arabia, too, was taken aback. For years, their financial influence had been a powerful tool of diplomacy. For decades, nations had welcomed their offers, often without question, fearing that refusal would mean losing favor, losing funding, losing connections. But here was Ibrahim Traoré, calm, fearless, unmoved, saying no and doing so without apology. And in that moment, something extraordinary happened. People began to see him differently. He was no longer just the president of a small, poor African nation. He was a symbol of resistance, a symbol of dignity, a man who could not be bought. Because think about it carefully. What does it take for a leader of one of the poorest nations in the world to look one of the richest nations in the eye and say, "Keep your offer. My people need something else"? It takes courage, it takes clarity. It takes the kind of leadership that is built not on greed but on sacrifice. Traoré knew what others refused to admit. Every gift has a price. And every offer has an agenda. Saudi Arabia's offer might have been dressed as charity, but true charity answers real needs. If you offer food to the hungry, that is charity. If you offer medicine to the sick, that is charity. If you offer schools to the uneducated, that is charity. But to offer 200 mosques to a nation already filled with mosques, while children die from preventable diseases, while villages thirst for clean water, that is not charity. That is politics. And Traoré rejected it, because he understood that accepting the wrong gift can sometimes cost more than rejecting it. He understood that his people's future was worth more than polite agreements. He understood that leadership is not about saying yes to everyone. It is about saying no when it matters most. Across Africa, his refusal lit a fire. People began to whisper, then speak aloud. This is the kind of leader we need. A leader who does not bow. A leader who tells the truth. A leader who fights for his people, not for his image. And for the ordinary people of Burkina Faso, his decision was not just politics, it was proof. Proof that their president understood them. Proof that he felt their hunger, their thirst, their suffering. Proof that finally, someone was leading, not with empty words, but with actions rooted in reality. This was not just a rejection, it was a declaration that Burkina Faso would not be bought. A declaration that dignity cannot be traded for stone and cement. A declaration that faith does not need monuments when the faithful are dying of hunger. And in that single moment, Traoré showed the world that leadership is not about pleasing the powerful. It is about protecting the powerless. But the real question is, why did Ibrahim Traoré reject billions of dollars when his country is struggling with poverty, weak infrastructure, and constant threats from insurgents? The answer is simple, yet powerful. He understands that money without independence is nothing more than a chain around the neck. If a leader accepts aid that comes with hidden conditions, he is no longer free to act in the best interest of his people, he becomes a servant in his own palace. Traoré knows this. That is why he has made it clear, Burkina Faso will not be bought no matter the price tag. Think about history. How many African nations were promised prosperity by powerful outsiders, only to be left in deeper debt, weaker governance, and endless cycles of dependency? Every contract, every loan, every so-called investment came with fine print, control over resources, military presence, or political interference. And once a leader accepts that bargain, the future of his nation is no longer his to decide. Ibrahim Traoré is one of the few modern leaders who openly refuses to fall into this trap. He doesn't want billions today in exchange for centuries of submission tomorrow. Instead, he is calling for self-reliance. He is telling his people, our dignity is worth more than their dollars. To some, this sounds like stubborn pride. But in reality, it is the foundation of true sovereignty. A nation cannot rise by constantly depending on handouts. It must learn to build its own industries, its own schools, its own armies. That is exactly what Burkina Faso is trying to do under his leadership. They are turning away from those who exploit Africa's weakness and turning toward unity with their neighbors, with people who share the same struggle. And this is why his refusal shocked not just Saudi Arabia, but also many observers around the world. Because it was more than a rejection of money. It was a rejection of the system. A system that believes every leader has a price. A system that assumes Africa will always kneel when dollars are thrown on the table. Traoré's no was a reminder that not every leader can be purchased, and not every nation will sell its future for temporary relief. It was a dangerous message to those who benefit from keeping Africa weak, but it was a message of hope to millions who dream of a free and powerful continent. And this is where Ibrahim Traoré's story takes us beyond the man himself, to the symbol he has become. A young leader unshaken by riches, unfazed by golden offers, and unwilling to sell the soul of his nation. When Saudi Arabia came with promises of luxury, wealth, and an open door to endless comfort, he did not bend. Instead, he reminded the world that some leaders cannot be bought because their loyalty belongs not to palaces but to people. Burkina Faso is not the richest country. Its roads are broken, its schools underfunded, its hospitals struggling, and its villages thirsty for clean water. Yet in the face of that need, Traoré chose dignity over dollars. He chose independence over dependency. And he chose to teach the world that a nation's soul is worth far more than the price tag attached to it by outsiders. This is why people listen when he speaks. This is why his image now stretches far beyond Africa, reaching into the hearts of every young man and woman who dreams of a better tomorrow. Because his stand tells them one thing: you can rise without bowing, you can build without begging, you can lead without selling out. The world is watching. And whether they admit it or not, the powerful nations now know Africa is no longer for sale, at least not under leaders like him. That is why Traoré matters. That is why his decisions echo. And that is why his refusal to eat from the hands of kings will be remembered in history as an act of silent defiance louder than any speech. As we close, remember this. True power does not come from what you accept, but from what you refuse. Traoré's refusal has given him more strength than any deal could. It has made him a voice of his people, a symbol of courage, and perhaps the beginning of a new chapter for Africa. So when you hear his name, do not just think of Burkina Faso. Think of integrity. Think of resistance. Think of the young captain who said no when the world expected yes. And if this story moved you, if it opened your eyes, then don't just watch and walk away. Support voices like these. Share this message. And most importantly, subscribe to this channel, because here, we uncover the truths that others try to silence. This is not the end. This is only the beginning.